ask them about who got funding, who didn't get funding, and who applied. Again, just trying to get an idea so we can voice that back to the congressman and our political connections to make sure that people understand that we've got to do something now. Speed is important in order to save these businesses, and so that's where we're kind of focusing our energies. But truly appreciate everything you guys are doing there, and I love that we're partnering on these items for the betterment of our downtown and our whole city and our community.
Oh, forgot to unmute myself. Thank you, Jim. Really appreciate you, and we'll look forward to joining that webinar on Thursday. Those have been really helpful. Okay, Courtney Kienow, can we get an update from you now?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, Bettina and everybody. Thank you again for pulling together these calls. It's so great to see everybody's faces, and I always want to acknowledge when we have other Cal Poly leaders on the call, and I see Bob Linscheid here, our Senior Advisor for Economic Development. So thank you, Bob, for being on the call. As far as Cal Poly updates go, we have officially canceled events through June, which probably won't be a surprise to many of you. And the summer quarter will be virtual as well. We have transitioned, as many of you know, to all virtual in the quarter we are in right now. We did our virtual open house for the first time on Friday and Saturday, which I hear went really well as it can. We had students do virtual tours and gave them the option of being on a Zoom call like this with other students to talk about that experience, and just trying to be innovative and creative like so many of you. We, outside of all of the pandemic responses and plans, we are still gearing up for our master plan to go to the Board of Trustees on May 12th. And that is the plan that will allow us to add student housing on campus and build out our academic spaces, and is really the blueprint for the future of Cal Poly. So very focused on that. And that is all I had for this morning. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. And we have a new face to our Downtown SLO meetings this week. We're welcoming Cassandra Wagner, and we thought we could invite her to speak a little bit about the Community Foundation and the important work that they're doing to help nonprofits and the people in our community. So welcome, Cassandra.
Thank you. And I have a PowerPoint presentation too, which I think they're going to queue up for us. Okay, so it's so nice to meet everyone. I am the new Director of Grants and Programs, and I have been working with the community on the Disaster Support Fund. So I'll be quickly talking about what we've been doing. So if you progress to the next slide, thanks. So at a high level, we've received an unprecedented amount of support for the Disaster Support Fund. We raised over $200,000 in less than a month to support these efforts. And we've granted over $80,000 during this period. The total impact of philanthropy through private donations from donor advisors and private foundations is over $220,000. So we progress to the next thing. So the best way to think about this is phases of our disaster relief. So pre-disaster, how did we handle things? Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and I'll quickly jump into each one of these. So for pre-disaster, so if we can jump into the next slide. So for pre-disaster, the first thing that we did is when there's a state of emergency, we open up our disaster support fund, which is absolutely no fee to the community for this. So 100% donations go back out into the community. We also issued a survey to our nonprofits to learn how this has impacted them in the immediate. And so we asked them about the needs of their constituents, and that's what this graph here explains. Is mostly what we learned is that the constituents really needed cash assistance as well as other needs that they have that you can see. And then if we go to the next slide, this was really phase one, was proactive grant making. So we weren't really sure how many contributions we were going to receive, and we knew that we needed to act fast. So we did 5 grants to different nonprofits, so such as SLO Food Bank, looking at our homeless organizations, and then how survivors of domestic violence would be immediately impacted and their families. So after phase one, we moved to phase two, and this is responsive donations. So we received a critical mass of donations to the fund and were able to launch a competitive grant application. And this is really where we're at right now. So we are granting on a weekly basis. So it's rolling based on the number of contributions that we have. We've been able to award several organizations, but all of these organizations are serving vulnerable populations with basic needs, and the grants range between $5,000 to $20,000. So on the next slide, you can see a list of some of the organizations that we've granted to thus far. And again, just to reiterate, the amount that we're able to push out into the community is very related to the amount of dollars that we get in. So this is the phase that we're currently in. And then phase 3 is recovery. And so we're not there yet, but this is something that we're being mindful of, is the long-term impact on not just nonprofits, but also our community as well. And so we are looking at applying for corporate sponsorships, as well as looking at our donors that we're already in relationship to continue a long-term recovery strategy for these grants. So lastly, if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on the next slide.
Great. Thank you so much, Cassandra. That's really helpful, and it's great to hear that our community is so supportive. We have a number of nonprofit organizations in our downtown, and downtown is more than just an accumulation of businesses, but it's really a neighborhood. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to highlight the important work you're doing to make sure that our community as a whole is healthy and can withstand this crisis. So thank you for being here, and also welcome to the community. I know you're a new transplant to the area, so welcome to San Luis Obispo.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Okay. And next up, can we call on Molly Cano, please, from the city of SLO?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Awesome. Thanks for the time this morning to give you guys a little bit of update on what we're doing here within the city and our team in order to continue things moving forward. So as you've heard throughout the call all morning, really, we are all on the focus of the plans for what reopening can look like. So that's a large focus of what our team is working on right now to really understand how can we put the guidelines and work with the county to move forward with what that is. I think one of the things we've talked about on past calls that I think is important for us to talk about here as well this morning is kind of what the role of the city is and how it fits in to the greater kind of picture and the larger program and map that's being rolled out. And so when you think about, the order and the guidelines and all of the information that's coming out of the governor's office, you can really think of that as essentially like the foundation, the base. That's the floor of what the opportunities are. Here within our county, the guidelines that are rolled out from our county really act as the ceiling, right? And so as the city and as we approach what reopening means for us, we are working within those parameters on how the guidelines and all of that works here within our community specifically. So there's a lot of focus and work going into that right now, and is a big portion of our response work today. I will let you know that our city council does have a meeting tomorrow night. And so Derek Johnson, our city manager, will be doing an update to our city council tomorrow evening to provide updates on the city's COVID-19 response overall. And so I encourage you to tune in. You can watch that again. Everything is of course continuing to be done virtually. So you can either live stream the recording via channel 20, watch it through the website, and there's specific instructions through the city's website on the council agenda for information about that and how you can submit public comment and all of those items as well. So that will be happening tomorrow night. In addition, one of the big items that we're rolling out this week is a business survey. So we'll be doing a business impact survey that will be rolling out to businesses later this week, Wednesday and Thursday. So we encourage you to watch your inbox, your email inbox for that. Really, this is helping us get a sense of where our businesses are. We've had great communication directly with the members of Downtown SLO and working closely with Downtown SLO, as well as with the Chamber and hearing what's going on with the members from the Chamber. Through this business impact survey, we will be reaching out to all of those businesses, but in addition to that, we will also be reaching out to the businesses within our community that aren't necessarily associated with one of those two organizations. And so we'll be rolling that out Wednesday, and then again in our community update, which we roll out on Thursday as well. So stay tuned for that. Your insights and feedback through that survey will be really important as we look at what the impacts have been and how we put together our roadmap for what our recovery and our resiliency looks like as we move into the future.
Great, thank you, Molly. And I have one question to put you on the spot here. Do you happen to have any information about downtown activity and calls for service and public safety, since many of us are not downtown?
Yeah, I don't have that information in front of me right now, but what I can do is reach out and get that information and send that over to you so that we can take a look at that.
Great, thanks. And I put you on the spot there, so.
That's one stat I don't know. So I'll get that for you.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing to highlight our, our businesses. And we have our We Are Downtown SLO series. This past week, we highlighted one of our fantastic business owners, Josh Herring, who owns and operates the Mountain Air, one of our favorite outdoor shops in the downtown. And we had a great little clip of him talking about what it's going to take to survive, but it looks like the technology is not going to work. So that's okay. You can go on our Facebook channel and check that out. So I just wanted to remind you that we are always updating our virtual Downtown SLO. That is updated daily, and it has a list of businesses that are offering gift cards, restaurants that are offering takeout and delivery, as well as retail shops that are offering curbside pickup. So please make sure that your information is up there. And we've got a great team working to make sure that's up to date every day. And we are, again, pushing out information on our Downtown SLO Businesses Facebook group. We've got about 125 people on that group now. So that's a great place for us to connect in real time outside of these Monday morning calls. And also do some more polling. We love doing these polls through Zoom, but we can also get more up to the minute results on the Downtown SLO Businesses Facebook Facebook group. So back to the polls. We last week we did a couple of different polls, and these are the results thereof. And I've completely lost my Zoom screen. Let me just make sure that I'm still connected here. We just got a question, and I'd love to answer this again. We got a question about our farmers market and whether we will be the first to open again. And I'd like to hand that over to Whitney Cheney, our farmers market manager. If you're on the line, can you answer that question while I get our slide deck back up and running?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we are definitely looking at plans in terms of reopening our farmers market. For those who don't know, we contract with the SLO County Farmers Market Association, who brings in our certified farmers section. So it will be a collaboration effort between our two organizations. But we will hopefully, I've been watching a lot of other surrounding markets. I intend to go to some of the other county markets in this next week to kind of see how they are operating and working, and hopefully we will have a plan in place to be one of the first to reopen.
Great, thank you very much, Whitney. Okay, and forgive my technology moment there. Appreciate your patience with me. All right, so let's go back to the polls. And Garret, if I could call on you to walk us through these polls.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bettina. So last week we asked you again what your most immediate financial need was for, and I'll share with you, this is a bit of good news. We've seen that the responses that businesses are on sure financial footing has remained constant. In fact, it's moved a little bit in the positive direction. So we'll continue to monitor that. We do see that rent reduction continues to emerge as a significant issue, as well as access to stimulus funds. So that those issues help drive the agenda for our meeting this morning. Can you go to the next one? So most pressing concern continues to be short-term lack of revenue for customers and clients. That is holding consistent with what we've seen over time. Next. And again, this issue of rent freeze or rent assistance continues to be a large one. And I know Molly Cano's on the line, and last week Molly agreed to continue to help inform the city and city council of the result of this survey. And again, we're seeing that rent freeze and rent assistance is the #1 thing being asked for by our downtown membership.
And I do want to point out here that that 16.7% who are interested in health and wellness screening and/or procedures. I've gotten a number of emails from business owners in the downtown who have come up with really creative ways of making sure that physical distancing and safety are being used in their stores. So I want to give a shout out to those of you who are thinking ahead and trying to figure out how to be really forward-minded so that we can operate our businesses in a safe way.
So which of the following best describes your current employer-employee payroll reality? This also is holding pretty tight with what we saw week over week, that the largest number continue with your pre-COVID staffing levels and don't anticipate changing that. We are seeing the numbers creep more towards incrementally growing on the layoff and furloughs though. So we'll continue to watch that and continue to report these numbers back to you. And the level of confidence that your business will reopen, we still see the vast majority are at the very high or high, but there has been a slight drop in that, and that drop has mostly gone into the uncertain range. So the number of you that feel low confidence has remained consistent at about 10%, but we do see that some of you are moving towards more uncertainty, and certainly we understand the rationale for that.
Great, thank you, Garret. And again, we'll push that information out again next week. And I just want to remind you that if you are feeling uncertain and if you are struggling with questions, I'm sure you are, and our team is here to help you. So please reach out to us. We are working remotely, and we are happy to help you troubleshoot through things, or if you have some specific questions, or if you just want to talk to somebody about how you miss being downtown. We also are having those feelings. So we would be happy to get on the phone or set up one of these Zoom calls as well. Just another way we're telling the story. Last week, we were interviewed by KSBY. I know KSBY came into a couple of different retailer shops. We have a weekly radio presence. Whitney Cheney goes on 4 different radio stations through American General Media every Wednesday and Thursday, and has been giving up her slot, which she usually uses to talk about farmers market, to a local business. So that interview I was trying to share earlier with Josh Herring was from one of those calls. They've also highlighted the Poor But Sexy folks who own Kreutzberg. They have turned Kreutzberg Coffee into a mask making factory. So if you're walking around downtown, make sure to peek in and see all the sewing machines. So we're trying to use our channels to tell these stories about how downtown SLO businesses are creative and resilient and coming up with really cool ways to make it through. I want to take this opportunity to talk about something kind of fun and bright that we're working on. There's been, everybody knows the old adage, April flowers bring May flowers. And much as we do our window decorating contest each year during the holiday season, we are launching a public art program that we're calling the May Flower Initiative. And so we're inviting all businesses to put flower displays or paint flowers on the outside of your windows. We have launched a website, which is downtownslo.com/mayflowers. And we did a call for artists with Arts Obispo. So if you have a business that you'd like to have be painted by a local artist, we can pair you with an artist. Or if you're just a business that wants to take that on yourself, please do so. And I'm gonna just take a second to show you what I was working on over the weekend. These are some giant sailcloth flowers. I printed out about 40 of these at my boyfriend's manufacturing facility. He's a sail maker. So we'll be putting these up in our windows in the downtown. So kind of a fun thing. We hope that you will all participate in that. And I see Stephen Patrick on the call, and he's on our cultural arts committee, and he's been really excited about this too. So just something to brighten things up. Our idea is that people in the downtown will be able to safely view these flowers from their cars or from bicycles, so they can maintain the physical distance, but still see something light and bright in the downtown, even while we are sheltering at home. So we continue to work with our colleagues at the International Downtown Association and at the National Main Street Association. They are especially helpful when it comes to some of the advocacy work that we're doing, particularly around the topic of small businesses perhaps not getting their share of the CARES Act money. I've already seen a couple of emails this morning doing some advocacy to Congress on a federal level, on a national level. So we'll be working on that as well, and I'll hope to report something back to you next week on our call. So I think it's time for us to do our polls. Rachel, can you open up our polls? And for some reason, I'm not seeing them on my screen, which is totally fine. Garrett, if you want to jump in and let me know if.
So the poll is open, and it won't start to show the tabulated results until somebody's completed all 5 questions.
And if anybody has any specific questions that they would like to ask at this time, again, you can throw those into the group chat, and we would be happy to try to answer them as best we can.
Looks like we're about halfway complete, so we'll leave the poll open for another minute or so. We really appreciate you providing this information. It does help as we plan who the speakers are, the topics, and most importantly, where Downtown SLO allocates their resources and focus on your behalf.
And as you're finishing up taking those polls, I just want to close by saying that we look forward to sharing with you that roadmap to reopening. We'll have some more information about what that might look like next week. And at that time, we'll also be inviting some other additional speakers to join us on this call. Lorelei Capel from the UVC will be joining us next week to give us an update, as well as our usual suspects. And if you have any ideas about people you'd like us to invite as stakeholders who you think are important for the downtown that you'd like to hear from, please let me know. You can email any of us by emailing reachus@downtownslo.com, or you can also reach out to me directly. My name is Bettina, Bettina, @downtownslo.com.
So Bettina, it looks like we've plateaued at 21 respondents, and there is a question that's been posed. So I'll close the polling if you want to get to the question.
I do not see the question.
Let's see. What is your sense for when gathering at entertainment facilities might resume?
I will preface my response to that by saying that I am not an epidemiologist. And so I am looking to people who are trained health professionals. But like all of you, I have also become somewhat of an armchair epidemiologist in the last few weeks. I never thought that I would know so much about the way that viruses operate. From what I hear from the governor, and certainly some remarks that he gave last week, he pretty much said that we should not expect to be gathering anytime soon. And I think that we're really going to be looking at new ways to engage in gathering in public spaces. In the before time, we used to look into the windows of a restaurant and see that it was full and think, okay, that means that's a good place to eat. And it may be that we change that so that if you look in the windows of a restaurant and you don't see a lot of people in there, you think maybe that's a good place to eat. I think the same will be true for our entertainment venues, our concert halls, and our public spaces for gathering. As you know, our organization puts on concerts in the plaza, and Farmers Market, which are two of the largest events in the city of SLO that bring thousands of people into the downtown. And we are not planning to bring those back anytime soon. So again, I have a sense that it will be probably the early fall before any types of gatherings will be permitted. And I imagine that those limitations will again ebb and flow with the public health directives, as Garret was describing earlier in the conversation. But I will say that on the national level, I'm hearing from a lot of performing arts ensembles, a lot of big entertainment venues, that they're pretty much looking at not doing anything until 2021.
And Bettina, I would just add to that we really need to begin reframing the question from when to under what conditions. And so picking a day on a calendar is likely not the way it's going to happen, particularly in California. And so I would encourage all of you to take a look at the governor's 6-point guidance on re-engaging and bringing down the social isolation and physical distancing, and start to think, as the amazing entrepreneurs that you are, how can you be relevant in a new environment where perhaps it is stair-stepped back to the types of engagements that you've had in the past. So again, if you're a restaurant, how can you open while still maintaining the physical distancing? If you are an entertainment venue, how can you do that with embracing as much of the physical distancing and safety measures as possible? So start thinking about conditions rather than dates.
It's a really important distinction. Thank you, Garret. Okay, well, we try to keep this to less than an hour because we know you're all busy. And oh wait, maybe we have one more question here. I'm sorry, I'm not being able to see the questions. Is there another question?
Question, any word on occupancy allowance so as to keep people safe post partial reopening?
Not yet. Not yet is the answer.
And we would encourage you to begin thinking of your own solutions so that when local government and the state come out with guidance, you've already thought of different ways that you could accommodate your business model with different degrees of partial re-engagement and partial opening.
Okay, well, our next meeting is going to be April 27th, again at 10 a.m. And for everybody who's been participating in the call for a couple of weeks, we really appreciate you being here. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. And we hope that you will tell a friend if you find these meetings to be useful and informative. So please join us next week. Remember to breathe. We will see the sun coming up a little bit this week, and I hope that you will be well.